Hey guys, and welcome to the fourth and final part of the Ratmen Rules Agnostic Fantasy Army. Yes, this is part 4, the final part for now. Like any of these armies, I might revisit them at some point, but I can take you to the end point in this video. The last time I left you, remember there's a playlist, there's 3 parts before this. I had started to get them onto their bases, and it all started to come together. So I want to talk about shrooms. Yes indeedy. Part of the decoration of the bases was the bases themselves are quite green. Okay, so they're very, very uniform. The Ratmen off their bases, I noticed that 1 or 2 bases did actually have a couple of mushrooms on it, and I thought to myself, I love shrooms. I really do. So I want to get them. I want to get them on it. So I picked up this set. Well, actually, it was chucked at me at the studio of Spellcrow's mushroom set. 108 pieces in this, and you open them up, and they're all really nicely bagged. So it's 108, but it's actually 54 unique mushrooms, and you get 2 of each. So there's 2 of each in the little baggies. So I grabbed them, had a look at them. Beautiful. Absolutely lovely little mushrooms. I didn't spot a single casting flaw or anything in the use of them. So I whipped them all out and I glued them down to my sticks that I like to prime things on. And I hit them with a blast of Wraithbone, and the primer just went down beautifully on it. Didn't have to wash them or anything like that. Really just perfect resin casts. So that was that. I stuck them on to my primer, or to my priming sticks, primed them up. I then painted the base of them. Let me see. If you want to follow along on this project, by the way, if you go into my profile on tabletop and click on projects and then click on completed, yay, another one completed. It's in the completed list here under Pestilence, the Ratman Army. And then when you go into that project, what it'll do is you can actually follow along. So I have it all kind of documented in there, and the videos that I make here also get popped in there. So you can kind of follow along where everything is. There's even little bits of extra detail in there. For example, I was having a play with the Tesseract Glow, just to bring in line some of the little bits and pieces of glowy orbs and the likes, to try and match it and get them all to color match, and just to pop a little bit more. That Tesseract Glow paint is absolutely brilliant. But the shrooms, yep, put them all down. I then painted them along the base, basically with just something like a wash or a Nagrath's Earth Shade, I think it was. And then I jumped to these, because this was the opportunity for me to have a play with another one of my favorite paints, and that's the Fluorescent Range from Green Stuff World. I am no painter, as you well know. So it's so for me, I just like stuff that I can slap on and have some fun with. And this is that product. This is that product. You just slap it on in the right lighting conditions. It kind of fluoresces a little bit, so it's always really kind of poppy whenever it goes on there. And yeah, I'm pleased enough with the end result. Here, take a look at these. Painted them just directly onto the stick. I used every single color, because I thought to myself, look, if I'm putting these on for a bash of color, there's no point in me painting them all red, because I'm only adding 1 color. I think this army deserves to have a plethora of colors. So that's what I went for. And let me show you something just a little bit sexy, okay? Whenever you do stick it under a black light, bang! Just look at that! Oh my word! I absolutely love it. I think, heck, do I even have pictures of them on the base lit up like that? No, but here's a close-up of it. Check that out. Isn't that just mad? Absolutely mad. So, at that point, I was happy, and I was about to start sticking all of these mushrooms and things like that onto the bases, and to get stuck in. I was waiting for a couple more bases from my base smith. Okay, my base smith is a chap called Chris from Resin Bases. Check him out on Facebook, Resin Bases, but you'll find his stuff on eBay. And Chris sells bases that are plain, cast, or you can buy them painted by himself, pre-painted. And in this case, to save me a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, I ordered some of Chris's pre-painted bases. And I got a set in. My wife got me the set in. It was but she got me a set in, and then as I was working through the army, I came up with a couple of ideas and a couple of changes. So I needed a couple more big ones. So I reached out to Chris, ordered a couple more big ones. But when the package had arrived, Chris had sent me a gift, an extra big round base, and well, like any good wargamer, that completely distracted me and completely sidetracked my project. Yes, I had to think of something to do with that base, because I couldn't rest easy. I couldn't sleep at night if I didn't know what I was going to do with that base. So I decided it was time to make a Ratman siege tower. So I had a siege tower lying around. This is a 3D printed siege tower. You can get the file from printablescenery.com, another bunch of great guys from the other side of the world. And this is one that we had printed out. I had a couple of these lying around, and I thought to myself, do you know what? I really like this. It kind of, it doesn't look on Skaven like as it is. So I reckon I could probably use that as a base for what I wanted to do. So I got to work and I hit up my bits box, chucked it all together and primed it up. I then basically went about retrofitting this whole thing, and I thought to myself, I'll get them 2 spiky cannons at the bottom. So let's see, I drilled out just 2 big openings. I didn't want them too circular or whatever. I wanted to get the feeling of almost like a rat's nod through it. So I made them kind of weird shaped. I took everything that was in the prime, and I just stuck some contrast paints on it. So as you can see, very, very just basic painting on the whole thing. Checked that my cannons would actually fit through the holes, and then yeah, just started plopping the bits and pieces directly onto the actual siege tower that I had. And I really liked how a lot of it came together. A few little narrative details here, like a couple of boxes. You always need some boxes with some cannonballs near your cannons. This little device here, because the more I looked at the likes of the Doom Wheel and stuff, the more I thought, the Ratmen are quite mechanical. So this is a little bit of a kind of like a steam engine-y kind of thing. And I thought, if I had that on this drive, acting as almost like a drive against the wheel, pushing it forward, it might be a fun kind of narrative element of how a siege tower is pushed forward. So I kind of built that in to that spot there. The big kind of chunky drill bit went up onto the 2nd level of the siege tower, and basically I just kept at it. I went back to my bits box again, pulled out a bunch of spears, and found a bunch of just spare kind of zombie heads and stuff like that. So just rotting heads, and yeah, cut the spears, glued the heads in between, and painted them up. And then on the very top tower, that was where I was going to start sticking the heads that were going to be, kind of there as we're evil. We love sticking heads on spikes. So, yeah, I was quite pleased with how that turned out. So, I went on ahead and painted them up. this banner thing I thought would be kind of cool on the back of the siege tower, as almost like a communication. One of the things I love about pre-modern warfare is one of the most difficult things to do on a battlefield is communicate. We never think about it now because, you know, we have radios and all of that, you know, so it's, you know, but if you had really good lines and means of communication, you can get your army to do so much more. And, you know, types of communication that they used in the past: flags, banners, instruments like horns, different drum beats and things like that, to act as signals. You had your runners and stuff as well. But in this instance, because I love banners, I think banners on a fantasy army are an amazing thing. You know, they really do act as focal points. So I wanted to stick a banner at the back of the siege tower as a signaling device. So it kind of there, and they prop it up and fold it back depending on what they're trying to signal to the rest of the army. And there it is. This is it all starting to come together. And I popped it on its base, and yeah, I'm really pleased. I stuck a few spare spikes and bits that I had found just on this, just to bring it in line with what I was seeing on the front of the Doom wheels and on the front of the screaming bells and the likes. And I did a few little narrative pieces on the inside where, you know, on the actual siege ramp itself, that there were shields that the rat men could pick up on their way through as they were lining up. And that was pretty much that. It was really a case of do something with that base. And siege towers, let's be honest, they are some of the coolest things that you could ever find. So siege tower was ready. Final bit of basing to do. I had left this to the end because it was something I wanted to have a good long think about before I got completely stuck into it, and that was the Doom wheels. The Doom wheels for me are some of the best models ever produced, and certainly in the Ratman range, they are easily the best models in the range. I just think they are superb. And I didn't want my Doom wheels to just be statically sitting flat on the base. Now, I wanted to give them a sense of speed. And one of the easiest ways to do that was to give it a sense of momentum, a sense of dynamic movement, by adjusting the position of them so they weren't just sitting flat, so they actually looked like they were spinning around a corner or wheeling or whatever. Now, the thing about a Doom wheel is its power source is right in the middle of the big wheel, so it's not particularly going to wheelie as a result of the propulsion of a rat inside it. But however, if it hit a big stone or whatever, you know, if it was carrying momentum, it will launch. It will launch itself. So it was good enough for me to basically get in there and just do a little bit of pinning, just to pin the thing up, and in this case up into an angle, so that I could have my Doom wheels just looking that little bit more dynamic than just sitting flat on the base. The other good thing that it does is, whenever you can lift a model like that off the base, especially when the model itself is a good bit, you know, it's a good bit bigger than the base, what it did was it opened up more of the base for me to actually dress up with some narrative. And because I'm all about the base, that also worked really well for me, because it gave me much more scope and much more canvas in order to work on. So, with everything then on its bases, it was time to get into the finishing phase. This is the point where you go to your hobby area late in the evening, everybody else is in bed, and you get your favorite album on. So for me, not my favorite album, but one that I really like. I normally do this stuff listening to Metallica Master of Puppets. That brings all sorts of stuff back to me. But in this case, I went for something a bit different. So I went for Justice for All. Now, the thing about Justice for All is it's very, very in the high range, okay? Just the way they mix it, which when I was young, I loved, but I'm much more older and mellow now, so I like it with a bit of bass. So, believe me, do a search for Metallica and Justice for All with bass. You'll thank me. You will thank me. Anyway, with that playing in the background, I got stuck in. So I sorted out my little bits for the bass dressing. And it consisted of, I had a little bundle of rats that I had managed to find and paint up. My shrooms, green crystals, and a little selection of kind of like dead grasses and things like that. Just to give a little bit of an organic touch to the bases so that the shrooms wouldn't completely stand out on their own. And then I decided to go with the big models first. So I got the two big plague engines and picked one of them out and went to town on basing it up. And this is that said bad boy with some rats and mushrooms and crystals and little bits of grass on it. And I thought, yeah, I'm on the right track here. So once I'm happy with it, and look, there's no science to this kind of thing, really. Yeah, you know, maybe keep your mushrooms closer to your patches of grass on something like this, because that's kind of where you would expect to see them, where there'd be more moisture and the likes. But in general terms, really, it is just a case of stick stuff on it until you feel it's right. I wouldn't worry yourself about it at all. The key here is the rule of cool. And in a rules-agnostic army, remember, you have freed yourself up from the rules. So free yourself up from any of the kind of the baggage that you would normally have and just go with what's cool. This is an army that ultimately you want to be able to take along to you know, your mate's house, or bring people over, or go to a club, fire it on the table and go, look at that. You're having fun before you've even moved a miniature. You're having fun just looking at that army. And that's exactly what I wanted. So I just blitzed my way through the rest of it, and I reached the end. And now I get to share some of these holiday snaps with you. Yeah. So I chucked them on a gaming table just to get a feel for what they would look like. And I've got to say, my two plague engines originally were the centerpiece of that army, but getting that base and then getting stuck into that siege tower, I ended up with a brand new centerpiece to the army. And I just love how much this army pops. Like, of all of the little fantasy armies that I've kind of stumbled across over the years, this little Ratman army was one of the, I don't know, kind of like driest of them all. You know, it was everything was little shades brown right across it, and it wasn't a particularly flamboyant army. And I just think that this basing scheme has just injected such a sense of fun and flamboyance and energy into the little army that I love it. Now, look, don't get me wrong, I am never going to win any competitions or anything with this kind of stuff, but that's not my point. You know, that's not the reason I sit down to do these things. I just want to have armies that are fun to look at. You know, that you enjoy looking at them and you enjoy interacting with them. And this army definitely fits into that mold for me. I think it, you know, the basing scheme on this completely re-energized it. And it was a very simple process. You know, it didn't take a massive amount of time or a massive amount of effort to do it. You know, the longest wait was waiting for some of the bases to arrive, and even then it was only a few days. But it just was. It was one of those projects that almost just unfolded itself at the finish up. It really was a real joy to work on, because as I got moving with it, once I had made that decision that this was the kind of the base style I was going for, everything else just really fell into place. And little, you know, a fairly tired looking little army is now probably one of my favorites. And I would absolutely be a joy to take this army anywhere, to change somebody's rules to make it work with this little army. So yeah, if you go to my projects page, I did notice that in there, if you look down here, is the High Elf Army Resurrection. That is the army that started it all. I've done a few since then, so I must see if they're in the project system, and if they're not, I will try and add them in there. But yeah, that's one to have a look at the my first go at taking armies and just using rebasing as a means of bringing them to life. So I reckon those high elves could come out for a battle against those rat men. Rules wise, like I said, these are rules agnostic armies. In other words, if I find a rule system that I kind of like, I will change the rule system to accommodate the unit sizes that I have and the base sizes that I have and stuff like that. And we'll fudge it. We'll still have a ton of fun. We'll still have an absolute ton of fun. So, you know, I'm quite happy. You know, if you want to play me Kings of War or whatever, yeah, we'll work it out and we'll make it happen. You know, it's rules are easy to change. They are easy to change. So why limit yourself? I just want to make an army that is cool. What I like to do for these little armies, and I will come back to this at some point in the future, is I like to do a little page of special rules, which are more along the lines of special guidelines than special rules. So rather than going into detail on very specific rule mechanics, I will do little general statements and general rule mechanics for some of the specialist units in it, and that siege tower will be getting that treatment. Right, that is Pestilence. That is the Ratman army complete, and now it's time to move on to the next project, where I'm going hunting for witches.